The red line below that comes from Toulouse through Rome and Taranto in Italy down there, which sounds like Toronto, but is not. It's Taranto. Now, those guys had the money. These are the actual knights, and they raised their armies, and they were able to take ships. Eventually, they would start sailing their ships from the coast of France down Italy and across the Mediterranean itself, past Greece to the south there. Now, for those of you geographically challenged people like Pop out there, we know Italy looks like a boot, but this to the west here, or to the east rather, this is Greece.
Yes.
And it encompasses all of these islands over here.
The Thousand Islands.
There you go. Yeah. The dressing. Yeah. See? That's Pop's idea of geography. It's the dressing.
It works.
Okay. That's fair. So anyway, you go over here. There's this big island over here. This is Cyprus. And I've met a couple of Cypriots. They're actually really nice people. And it's off the coast of the Levant. And a lot of the Crusaders who have the money will stage off of Cyprus because obviously that's a perfect spot to stage off of. If you have naval vessels, let's do this a little bit, bring it over here. And and you have the money to move ships around. I'm going to take little Cyprus over here, and I'm going to make that my base because it covers this whole stretch of coast. And you're talking about a time when there was no such thing as air superiority.
Nope.
So naval forces meant speed up and down that coast, which was the whole contested region. And it all gave a way to retreat because the Islamists had not yet really figured out sailing in that part of the world. They would. And they would do it very soon. And they would start pirating and basically depopulating all of the coastlines of the northern Mediterranean. All of this here, Rome, France, Spain, all the way up into Ireland. The Muslim pirates would take slaves through this entire region.
Yep.
For hundreds of years. That's what the Marine Corps from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli.
Yep.
That's what they're talking about, kids, is the Islamic slavers, is the Muslim slavers.
And they attacked a bunch
at Libya.
of American ships, and the American government was like, fuck
thousands.
This.
Yep. They took thousands of American slaves.
Yeah.
Anyway, no shit, there we were, hip deep in soju caps. So this whole region becomes contested after the People's Army gets slaughtered at Antioch. The real crusade begins, and it's led by Godfrey of Bouillon, among some others. Godfrey of Bouillon is the Duke of the Lower Lorraine, which is present-day Belgium. He is a vassal of the Holy Roman Empire, and he sold or mortgaged parts of his lands to raise funds for the Crusades. Like I said, these are the guys who actually have the money to hire real knights, professional soldiers. And back in the day, lords would raise companies. And these companies of soldiers, the lords would pay them to do a specific thing, but then sometimes they would just leave them in a place. And these companies would wander around as trained armed men and not be paid and just decide to loot shit.
Yes. Because who's going to stop?
Yes. Who's going to stop them except maybe another company?
Mm-hmm.
And they've got to eat and they got to get paid. So they just start looting because they don't have a lord. But this crusade gave the lords, especially the big lords, the dukes and the kings, something to do with these companies. Hey, let's get them all together. Let's build an army and let's send these fuckers to the Levant and let them do their thing down there. Just cut them loose down there to be fine.
Well, and another thing with the First Crusade, or after the First Crusade, when actual trained individuals went down there, I believe the Pope was putting out that you could go down there and retake the Holy Land and all of your sins would be forgiven, and you could even ransom people back from hell and all kinds of crazy.
Europe at the time, everybody takes a very cynical view of that, but Europe at the time was a very Christian place. They took a lot of that stuff very seriously, and yes, some of it was cynical. And yes, some of it was money oriented, but there is so much. I can actually cancel. I don't want to leave site. I want to do this. I want to come over here. Hang on.
But that's how they raise.
Will all make sense in just a minute. Okay. So yes, you are correct. But this is from the 11th century. Okay. This is what I do for fun. This is what I do for fun. This is one of my bookmarks on my tab. Let's see if I can enlarge it. It doesn't want to enlarge. At any rate, this is one of my many, many bookmarks for, here's one of my favorites, actually. Let's see if I can get that one to come up. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. I read this shit for fun. This is actually one of my bookmarks that I have, and all of the information that I get on the conditions of Europe at the time and the conditions of Christianity at the time, I'm getting right from the horse's mouth.
Yes. Because a lot of the stuff you read in modern history books it's
skewed.
It's skewed. It's been written, rewritten, retranslated. Yeah. And if you get it directly from the old original text, it tells a whole different story.
One of the conversations Pop and I were having at the beginning before we started the show is when we go into this and we listen to these things, we look at these things, we have to remember not to look at them through our eyes.
Modern eyes.
You have to look at them through the eyes of the time. Like the issue of slavery. Okay, it's bad. I don't like the idea of slavery. I don't know anybody who does. But at the time, slaves were the gardeners, the farmers, the teachers. There are multiple cases of well-known historians who were actually slaves in the employ of emperors of Rome who taught their children.
Yeah.
And the royal families counted on these slaves to educate their children correctly in all of the histories, traditions, and customs. So it wasn't just they were tools, basically.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Islam actually has parts of it that condone and actually
specifically written into their texts. That is my understanding.
Where it's not that is not in the Torah or the Bible.
Not in that form, no. But again, it was a cultural norm at that time. It was just there. They didn't need to write about it. It was just normal.
Yeah.
It was just normal. And only the wealthy had slaves. You didn't encounter like Joe Blow the farmer having slaves. People could actually sell themselves into slavery, which is called indenture, for a period of time. And a little known thing is a lot of the gladiators were actually indentured.
Yes, they were.
They had a debt, and they worked it off in the arena and hoped they didn't die in the process.
Well, one of the greatest, I don't remember his name, but one of the greatest gladiators during the Roman era was indentured because he had a gambling problem.
Yes. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't recall his name either. Another myth about
he fucking went berserk in that goddamn arena and won his fucking freedom.
One of the things that is a myth, a Hollywood myth, is that all of these gladiators died in the arena. Yes, it happened. Of course it happened. No. But remember, these gladiators are somebody's meal ticket.
Yeah.
They don't want to kill them all off. You don't kill your fucking meal ticket, dude.
Well,
they'd get fucked up. Some of them would die, but normally it would be a fight to
a
wound or to a surrender or to a condition.
Correct.
So, anyway, Godfrey of Bouillon was the first. What?
Rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole. We did. We went right down the fucking rabbit hole. Now, the first Crusades, the real Crusades, not the People's Crusades, where some weird itinerant merchant freaking preacher left guys to die.
The good idea fairy.
The good idea fairy. The first Crusade also went through Constantinople. That call from Pope Urban caused Godfrey of Bouillon to raise an army, went down through Constantinople, and as they got there, they swore an oath to the Holy Roman Emperor, who was Alexios at the time.
Yes.
promising to return captured former Byzantine lands, which the Turks across the way. Let's go back to the map over here. Like I said, you've got Constantinople and still Holy Roman Empire. Across that strait, these were all Roman lands. Nicaea and Dorleon and all of that, those were Roman lands. They're not anymore. Now the Muslims have them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they get to Nicaea, and they took part in this. Godfrey of Bouillon took part in the siege alongside other crusaders, and the city was surrendered to the Byzantines. So Godfrey of Bouillon has now fulfilled his vow to Emperor Alexios. They moved on to the city of Dorleon, and he fought in the vanguard, and he helped to repel the Turkish attacks. They continued the march south to Anatolia and into Syria and participated in the long siege of Antioch. That went from October of 1097 to June of 1098. Now, I don't know how many of you understand what's really involved in a siege, but October, November, December, January, February, March, April. See where I'm going here?
Yeah.
These guys camped outside the city of Antioch for 9 months.
That's gotta suck.
Meanwhile, inside the city, they better have wells that are dug into the city itself. They better have a way to defend those wells so that you can't throw dead animals over the wall into the well, which was an early form of chemical warfare.
Biological warfare.
Biological warfare, thank you. And you had better have a year's food supply
for the entire city.
Because they would start eating parts of leather uniforms, and of course they would get into the long.
Gone.
They would get in. Yeah, they would get into the long pig after a little while.
Yeah, listen, horse is actually
people still eat.
Yeah.
People still eat horse in France, in parts of France.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I myself didn't really care for it, but some people like it. People even eat dogs in the Orient, which I find reprehensible, but they do it. Good bogey.
Stories that we don't want to tell tonight. So anyway, Godfrey Bouillon then marched with the Crusader army through Syria and Palestine and assisted in securing supplies, and routes. They would do this through raiding. They would go through and they would form basically what would amount to a battalion. That battalion would break off from the main column and see that village over there a mile away, bring us everything. And they would go into that village and just take everything.
It's called foraging.
And bring it back to the train. That's how armies resupplied back then. You had baggage trains. You had some logistics to a degree. But let's put the map back up. They didn't have C5s to do Lapes drops for supplies.
Yeah, there was no C-130 dropping pallets of food and water from the sky. It didn't happen.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
You wanted that shit, you made it happen.
Yes, you had to forage along the way. Now, one of the battle techniques that developed during this period, and the Russians excel at this, is scorched earth. Scorched earth does not refer to the aggressing army. Scorched earth refers to, hey, we got a button-pushing monkey who's got a Crusader skeleton. Yeah. Nice, Jimmy. I like that. Scorched earth refers to the defending army burning everything in front of the oncoming aggressor army and leaving them nothing
but ashes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the aggressing army, like I said, who had no logistics at that time, has nothing to go with, and they'll wither away.
Yeah, and this is like during our Civil War in 1860s, we did the same thing, and so did the South.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, when you hear that term scorched earth, it doesn't mean that the army is going through and burning everything to the ground. Although they did that in Atlanta, which pisses Southerners off. Don't start that conversation with a Southerner. It will get ugly. Usually it was the defending army who would use scorched earth techniques. So Godfrey of Bouillon is marching with the Crusader army. They get through Syria and Palestine, and he actively commanded troops in the final assault of Jerusalem in 1099. Now, that happened on the 15th of July. They breached the walls and entered the city. That's a fascinating battle to read, when the first breach of Jerusalem in 1099 happened. Jerusalem was a huge, sprawling city, had huge sections, and they had whole sections of the city. It was like a jigsaw fortress.
I believe
They could close off portions and then open another portion on the back side of that closed off portion to get into a different portion where they could close that off. And it was like a big freaking, because this city is thousands of years old at this point.
Yeah. If my memory serves correct, I believe they actually had somebody on the inside allow people in.
That happens all the time. That
Yes.
happened at the city of Cordoba. We won't go into that because everybody will get angry because I'm talking about people in small hats.
Yes.
That's documented, by the way. Anyway, he actively commanded troops in the final assault. This is Godfrey of Bouillon, the Duke from the Lower Lorraine, which is now present-day Belgium, to remind you of what's going on. Then, the reason Godfrey of Bouillon is important here, when they took Jerusalem, he became the commander for the Crusader forces who defeated the Egyptian relief army near Ascalon, which is down below Jerusalem. It's not on this map, but it's down below Jerusalem. And that basically shut down Muslim advance for that time. Now, everybody's like, oh, they just went in there and just killed all those poor Muslims. No, the Muslims had gone in 300 years prior, and then that Egyptian Muslim army, the Fatimids, they decided they were going to kill all of the Christians and just take the area completely.
And they did.
That triggered the Crusades. It was a defensive war because those Christians had been there since the time of Christ.
Yeah.
The Muslims showed up around 620 AD, 600 years after the fact, and started killing that because they wanted that territory.
Yes.
And they'll tell you that, but then they'll claim that it was all theirs to begin with anyway.
Well, they did win it in battle, so they do.
They did win it in battle. Conquest is a human thing. We are evil, hairless monkeys. We kill shit.
Yes.
We get carried away with that. So Godfrey of Bouillon governed the new Crusader state, which was the Kingdom of Jerusalem, until his death in July of 1100, which gives us the establishment of what is called the Latin kingdoms. There are 5 of them. There's the Kingdom of Jerusalem. There's the County of Edessa. There is, you can see Edessa, it's up above Antioch.
The map isn't showing.
Over here, I'm reaching for the map button.
Okay.
Edessa is to the northeast of Antioch there. The Principality of Antioch, of course. The County of Tripoli, which is about a quarter of the way south from Antioch on the coast as you head toward Jerusalem. Okay, I'm sorry, there are 4 Latin kingdoms. They're established between 1098 and 1109. Edessa is the first one to fall. Then Jerusalem falls, and the capital is moved to Acre, which is about halfway north between Jerusalem and Antioch. I actually have a map of that. Why am I not using
Pull it up,
map?
you sons of bitches.
It's the map, you sons of bitches.
Use your goddamn map, you motherfucking son of a bitch.
Okay. Now we can see. There, you can see Ascalon 1099. There's that battle where they beat the Fatimids.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I've watched, if there's some channels on YouTube where they actually show the armies maneuvering and casualties.
There's a really good one. I can't remember his name anymore, but there's a really, really good one. I'll try to find that guy.
Because I'm a battle geek. I watch all that shit all the time. I'm like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so do I. So they fall back to Acre, which is north of Jerusalem on the coast. And that is one of the major strongholds. But then Antioch falls, and then Tripoli falls. Now Accra is isolated. And finally, in 1291, it took them 300 years, basically, 200 years, to bring Accra down. And the Kingdom of Jerusalem and all of the Latin states are ended.
The reason it took the Muslims that long is we decimated their armies. We outmaneuvered them. We outfought them. We wreaked absolute havoc. And it would take 20, 40 years to the population to come back, and then they would assemble another army to get decimated yet again.
Here's the other side of that story. Once that happened, the Latin kingdoms, the people who lived there originally, many of them fled back to Europe. Many of them were from places like Norway. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know that a lot of the people who were living there were from up in Europe who wanted to live in the Holy Land because it was the Holy Land. And these kingdoms were full, flourishing kingdoms full of families and peoples and everything that goes with the culture. They had all of that stuff, but when the wars started to come, a lot of them fled. And then after that, between 1099 and 1291, when all of this came to pieces, what happened was the lords in Europe no longer had the money because wars cost money.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get supplies in there, whereas the Muslims were already there.
Yeah.
Yes. So the Muslims simply fought that easiest of battles, the battle of attrition, where you are indigenous to the area, you know the area, you have all of your supplies in the area, and the enemy you're fighting has no way to resupply and does not know the area. That's a bad battle to be on the bad end of, because the opponent who has the ground can just weight you to death.
Yep.
And pick at you until you can't get any resupplies in. And then after a point, you'll lose enough ground where you don't have anywhere to put those resupplies. Now they can't land ships at Tripoli. Now they can't land ships at Tyre. They can't land ships at Tortosa. And they can't land ships at Accra. The only place they can land ships is
at
Antioch. Yeah.
Decided to get scorched earth and do the genocide thing, it would have been a whole other animal.
Yes.
Which they could have done, but they didn't.
Yes.
They could have went in there and just wiped out all of the indigenous population so they didn't have to worry about that, but they didn't do that.
Why they didn't is not recorded. I personally believe it's because the European states were starting to come out of the medieval period and into the Renaissance period. We're talking 1291. Enlightenment is over the horizon. The money started to shift. They weren't as interested in those wars in the Holy Land anymore.
When was the Black Death?
They were building, that was
1350-ish?
1312, 1341, somewhere in there. But hang on. I want to prove a point here. Okay, so the Holy Land started to become less important, and here's why. When was Notre Dame first started?
The Notre Dame Cathedral? I don't know.
1163.
Ah, okay.
Europe started to have its own Christian Enlightenment, which means it doesn't need the Holy Land. The people don't need to go to Jerusalem except on a pilgrimage. They've got their own Christianity budding up, all of these magnificent cathedrals, starting with Notre Dame in 1163 when the Gothic architecture starts to kick in.
Yeah.
Like any war, the people become fatigued and the rulers run out of money.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the Latin kingdoms. Now, the first one, of course, was Jerusalem when it was captured by Godfrey of Bouillon. Baldwin I was crowned the king of Jerusalem in 1100, and he was defeated at the Battle of Hattin, and that's when Jerusalem fell to Saladin, and that is portrayed in Kingdom of Heaven.
Correct.
Baldwin I, also known as Baldwin the Leper. He had leprosy. That's what the mask and the gloves were all about in the movie.
That's a horrible way to go.
Yeah. The kingdom survived as a coastal state until 1291. It fell in 1100, or it fell in 1187. But it hung on until 1291. That's 110 years. Okay? And it survived as a coastal state, but with its capital at Accra. And again, Accra, Jerusalem, way down over here by the Dead Sea. Yeah. Accra is way the F up here.
Yeah.
So the kingdom of Jerusalem basically included Jaffa, Ramia, Accra, Ibelin, that whole region right there. So it held on for quite a while. Why is my Chrome is not responding? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, because my browser is doing bizarre shit right now. I will keep talking. Yeah, it's behaving badly.
All
Browser's behaving badly.
Murphy.
Let's see what happens if I try to kill that there.
Somebody's going to get fucked up.
Whoa!
What? Uh-oh. I think we lost Steve. Did we lose Steve?
I think so. He went full Walt Disney on us.
All right. Let's he'll be back. So anyway, if you watch The Kingdom of Heaven, you can see the fact that that's not a fact. It is a Hollywood production, but the whole Crusades was a huge muscle moving. And in my opinion, it was the beginning of our knowledge of how to wage effective modern warfare. Because they had the ships, they learned how to recruit the men. They actually, took steps to work on the logistics. And you saw a lot of that later on after the Byzantine Empire fell. And then you only had the Holy Roman Empire, which, is where the Catholicism basically started.
90 seconds.
Oh, what happened?
My browser just went and died.
Okay.
My browser just died. Fortunately, all of my notes have nothing to do with my browser, so all we've lost is the maps for the moment. I won't try to bring that. Battle Dwarf's wife didn't.
What I was bringing up is the
give
fact
her
that
any ideas.
The Crusades actually build a basis of knowledge on how to work on logistics, on how to mobilize armies, how to equip on mass scales. Because after the Crusades, the warfare in Europe really was on steroids.
Yes.
It literally turned into a huge...
That was, and the books that I showed you, my bookmarks, there are texts on exactly that.
Correct.
There are texts on lessons learned from those wars. So I described the Kingdom of Jerusalem falling. I'll briefly go into the county of Edessa and then the other two real quick, and then we could probably get to the super chats, because I've covered what I want to cover, the whole First Crusade, all the way from the time of Christ and the Romans through Godfrey of Bouillon and the establishment of the Latin kingdoms. What I wanted people to see is the progression, how it really happened, and how Christianity held that area until 632 when the Muslims started to show up, but the Christians were still there, which is what drew the Crusader armies by the call of Pope Urban in 1095. He's like, Jerusalem's got, all of our people are down there. Can we go get them, please? And then you've got corner box preacher guys raising armies. So anyway, the county of Edessa was founded by Baldwin, a different Baldwin of Bouillon, and it was captured by Zengi of Mosul. So the Iraqis have entered the game in 1144. The remaining territories were eventually lost over the next 6 years, and then the county of Edessa ceases to exist. That was that region to the east of Antioch by Turkey. The Principality of Antioch itself, where the People's Army was butchered in 1097, that was founded in 1098 after it was captured by Godfrey of Bouillon. And the period of regencies, it had kingdoms through 1130 through the 1160s. Then it was finally captured in 1268, 100 years later, by Sultan Baybars. And that whole principality was destroyed.
What year
that was one of the
Richard
Turks.
Lionheart there in the Holy Land?
When was Richard the Lionheart there?
I believe he was in the third crusade.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
I am bringing that up right now. I am not a robot.
We're
Mountains
not
or hills.
robot.
Why is Google giving me shit?
Fuck them.
Mountains or hills? Okay, here we go. He was there from 1190 to 1192, which would have been the third crusade,
Yes.
in an attempt to take Jerusalem back from Saladin. He fought at Acre, the Battle of Arsuf, and the Battle of Jaffa. They did not capture Jerusalem.
No, they did not.
Yep. So that's that is a full 100 years after the First Crusade. So Antioch fell in 1268. It hung on for almost 160 years. And then Tripoli, which was halfway between Antioch and Jerusalem on the map. Tripoli it was about a third of the way down from Antioch on the way to Jerusalem. 1102 to 1109 was conquered and established by Raymond of Toulouse and various successors. Survived Saladin's attacks, but was weakened badly. But then it was finally captured in 1289. So it survived almost 200 years when the Turks finally took that one. And that was the last of the Latin kingdoms. And that's when Islam pretty much took over the Middle East. And that story, with so much more history that we could pull into this. It's an almost infinite supply.
But just think about all of the pain, misery, and death that took place around the Holy Land.
Actually,
even to this day, it is absolutely just mind-bendingly stupid, in my opinion.
Watch Grunt Speak live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Pop for Supporter Sundays, go to redonkulous.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the Meat Gazer box.